Welcome, everyone, to the Insurance Perspectives podcast. This is part one of our series on Lightspeed Voice. On today's show, we have Bogus Handzel
Hi guys.
and Jacob Smith.
Hello, everyone.
Bogus will receive a full introduction in part two, as is our custom. As a sneak peek, Bogus is the Chief Operating Officer at Handzel Associates, based out of Schaumburg, Illinois. He joined the family business in 2005 and is quickly approaching 20 years of hands-on experience in the insurance world. Jacob Smith is in the hot seat today with us. Jacob has been a member of the Lightspeed team for about 2.5 years and is responsible for expanding and managing Lightspeed Voice in the Western United States and focuses primarily on the insurance market. Jacob is a frequent attender of industry events, attending last year's HUG National Conference in Carlsbad, California, and we also hope that he joins us later this year at sea, take to the sea, for Hug at Sea. It says hashtag Hug at Sea here, but by the time this episode out, who knows if X will still exist, in April. Most recently, though, Jacob joined us here in Oregon, where I'm recording from, for the Hug regional meeting at our home office. And we had an excellent time to sit and chat, where I learned a bit more about Jacob. We put together that he is probably one of the few residents or one of the few native sons of Minnesota that does not know our VP of Carrier Relations, Jerry Fox, despite growing up a mere 3 hours from where Jerry lives. Jacob attended the University of Minnesota in Duluth. Then he tried some warmer weather in Florida when he joined Lightspeed Voice. But I think you're going through a little bit of a Goldilocks period where you're now in Denver, Colorado, correct? You said you were trying
Yes,
to
sir.
acclimate a little bit more.
Exactly. Acclimating back to Minnesota. I think we'll end up there again.
Fantastic. We hear a lot about Minnesota from Jerry, and honestly, it sounds pretty good. As a Packers fan, I can't really say that it sounds really good, but I will admit that Jerry has never shown me an ugly photo of Minnesota. Let's put it that way.
No, summers are beautiful. Winters, especially in the north, I mean, wind chill of -20, -40 for entire weeks at a time. So, yeah, Colorado, I mean, the cold weather so far here has been like 30 degrees at the coldest. So, still need some acclimation before I can get ready for Minnesota again.
Well, then, let's dive in to our questions for you and put Lightspeed in the hot seat. Before we go into the 5 standard questions we ask every partner, I want to start with an elevator pitch. So if you walked into an elevator, let's say you need to go from the first floor of a hotel to like the 5th floor conference level.
Yeah.
What is the pitch? What is Lightspeed Voice? What do you do for an insurance agency?
Yeah. No, great question. I mean, the biggest thing about Lightspeed is that we're a phone system built for insurance agencies. Most of our customers, their previous carriers, were a system that was built for anyone and everyone. So when it comes to things like integrations or support, when you're looking for those integrations, they may not have them at all, or they may be very basic. Support is the same thing. When somebody calls in with they're looking for best case or ways to operate using a phone system in their agency, a large company is not going to have any idea how a small independent agency should route calls or how their IVR should be set up. Where that's going to be the biggest differences from Lightspeed to any other phone system is we work with insurance agencies every day, all day. We have right around 4,000 agencies using Lightspeed Voice now. So people call in for best tips and tricks. We can help them. They want integrating directly into their agency management system like HawkSoft. We're going to have a really deep integration for them.
So now we're going to turn to our 5 questions. We ask all of our partners these 5 questions so that our listeners can have a nice comparison between like systems and not. This is our first easy question. Why does Lightspeed exist? To give this some context, we at HawkSoft really believe in the power of the story. Like our origin story is something we put forward a lot to encapsulate our values and our perspective on things. And so we like to start these interviews by getting the story of why a particular business exists. Why do you operate in the insurance space? So, Jacob, why does your company exist? And to look at a different way, what is the reason for being so focused on independent insurance agencies?
Yeah, yeah. So our origin story, honestly, it makes sense. Our we started out in 2009. We're a family-owned business, and our owner was originally an agency owner. He's also a tech nerd, so he no phone system was working for him in the early 2000s, and he just developed his own.
Mm,
First, it was for his agency, then it was for his family's agencies, his friends' agencies, and now it's Lightspeed Voice today, servicing 4,000 agencies. So. Um, just wanted to build a system for insurance agencies by an insurance agency owner pretty much is really how it started, and nothing's changed since then.
yeah, that's fantastic. And I think a lot of people might look at a, a phone system provider, a telecommunications platform, and assume like, oh, this must just be, a chip off the block for all of these types of large telecom companies. But I'm glad that you point out that Lightspeed has a very different origin story. It's very much kind of a grassroots business, and I don't think that's obvious from the outside.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and again, white labeling a phone service and saying that it's for insurance agencies, that's, definitely something that could be done. But we have our own in-house developers,
Mm,
and every single feature that we are creating today, because our owner isn't an agency owner anymore. So it's not, the features that are coming up in his mind maybe aren't what is getting created today or what's
mhm,
needed today. So all of our feature requests come from our customers. All the features
mm.
that we're constantly pushing are feature requests directly from our agency owner customers.
Excellent. Okay. Um, you you're kind of a frontline soldier in a competitive technology vertical. And one of the things that HawkSoft experiences, ourselves being in a similar, probably a little less, slightly less competitive, like it's not as crowded of a market. But one of the things that we acknowledge between management systems is that there's going to be feature overlap. There are things that are table stakes that you have to have as a product that addresses a vertical. And you're probably it's going to fall into that 80/20 rule. 80% of your features are going to be that table stakes. You have to do these things, you have to do them well. Um, and for us, we think about the other 20% is where we get to stand out. Those are key differentiators.
Absolutely.
Um, if you had to pick one aspect of Lightspeed Voice that draws in and keeps your customers, what would that be and why?
Yeah, I mean, again, that would be the customer support. It's an unmatched customer support. We have 4.9 stars out of 800 something reviews on Google right now, and that's just about what all of them talk about. And I mean, I touched on it at the first question, but it's not just calling in and getting somebody on the phone. It's U.S. based, so that's a big plus there. But they service agency owners, and that's
Mm,
their only job, or
mhm,
agents. Anybody from an agency can call in, right? So that's probably going to be the biggest thing. The amount of time savings calling in and just saying what do you recommend, and the customer support representative being able to like tell you all of these different use cases on what other agencies and you're a similar size or you're a similar market, what they're doing and what's working for them
mhm,
is huge. I mean, you could start out a scratch agency today and we could give you kind of just like the best case on what everybody else is doing with their phone
mm,
system. What does it look like when a customer calls in? Can you have like kind of like an ad running on hold music?
mm,
When somebody calls in after hours, can you have that call rerouted to a carrier so you're not wasting time when you come in the office the next day dealing with that. So a lot of cool things like that. That's probably going to be the biggest difference from a phone system that services everyone versus Lightspeed Voice.
yeah, yeah, and I think I think that's one of the things that makes us as companies gravitate towards each other is that commitment to supporting agents. Bogus, you were nodding along to Jacob when he mentioned the product support at Lightspeed. What has your experience been? I know you're not one to call in frequently, but when the event arises, how has that been for you as a customer?
I mean, it's been fantastic. I've got a running joke, obviously, with HawkSoft that there's probably an asterisk by my file. I'm pretty sure it's the same
Oh
over at
no.
Lightspeed. I hit it off pretty early with them, coming from a different agency management system. Um, you know, they always are willing to hear use case scenarios to figure out how it works best for the agency. And
Hmm.
if I have a question kind of outside of the norm, they're always trying to figure out how they can help me to make sure that it works for my agency, which goes hand in hand with what HawkSoft's teams does. So culturally, very, very similar. I probably have a little bit more toys to play with than most agency owners because
Hmm.
I kind of know how to break things without breaking things. But that's been fantastic.
Yeah, excellent. Um, and I think that's one of the things that really does set a platform apart. It can be so frustrating when something doesn't work, and we're I don't want to go too. I don't want to. I'm like building a soapbox right now. Um, there's this concept of like these of like digital natives, which is this idea that starting with kind of millennials, maybe Gen X or things like that, definitely Gen Z. There's a population of people entering the business world, especially right now, that have always had a digital experience as part of their lives. They've always had computers. They've always had the internet for a lot of people. And I'm not a huge proponent of this because I used to work at a university and I've seen plenty of young folks that had no idea how a computer works. But I think we are seeing an advent of tech savvy insurance professionals that have always had they had computers in school, they had computer classes in school, and we're not people who can't find our own solutions. Um, but that means when we really hit the end point where we're just like, I can't solve this problem, we have to be able to talk to somebody. We have to be able to talk to somebody that's going to know more than us. And I think it's really differentiates a product when you have a support team that can take that call. Because there's companies out there that they've just done different business priorities, and support is like, well, we'll give you the help article and hopefully you'll get 90% of the way there. And so I love companies that invest in their support teams. um, a piece of that is because I started HawkSoft in support, but also I just think that we're getting to a point where people aren't just calling with silly questions. They're calling with like, I've exhausted my options, help me. A key aspect of what draws an agency to Hawksoft is our very public stance on data ownership. What we mean by that at Hawksoft is, from our perspective, both philosophically and within our agreements, an agency owns their data. The data that Bogus and his team and Handzel Associates cultivate, put into the system, work with their customers to collect and enhance and enrich, they own that data. So that's for us what we mean by data ownership, and it's important to us and it's important to the customers that come to us. Our audience cares a lot about this, and so I would love to know, Jacob, how does Lightspeed Voice approach data ownership with regards to your agency customers?
We believe data ownership is pretty simple. The agents own their own data. Customers have full control over their own information. Um, I mean, so for call recordings, for instance, call recordings are saved for on average about 3 years with Lightspeed, but you have the ability to download all of those. All call data in terms of, the amount of calls going inbound or outbound in an agency, total calls unanswered, how ring groups, all that data that you can look through reports, that's all downloadable as well. We have a time clock in the system that you can track hours, lunch break. That's all downloadable for payroll if you want it. So
Hmm,
everything that is in the system that is your data, you can just download it. We make it really easy,
I love that. I love how straightforward it is too.
straightforward.
Yeah, and a big piece of it is, Department of Insurance varies by state. They have different requirements on how long you need to retain stuff.
Yep.
And I also appreciate that you guys know we have to be able to give the agency the ability to take this data away. And portability is huge. Bogus, you're nodding along. Do you agree?
I do agree. Lightspeed made a change to move away from their old Prism PBX server to their new Quantum server for the admin side.
Mm.
Right away, probably first week, I noticed that I didn't have access to some of the stuff I did previously, so I let the support team know. One of those things was running basically a large data set to get some call volume and recordings in. Um, I let them know. They pushed up the chain, and I think it was implemented as a fix and an update maybe 2 weeks later. So I
That's
think
awesome.
that just speaks volumes. Is even if they don't think about, oh, agencies, the majority of agencies don't use this feature. There might be an outlier like myself that
Hmm.
uses it heavily, and just them willing to go and do the legwork to implement it in an upcoming fix is absolutely fantastic.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've had a lot of good times working with the Lightspeed development and product teams. Great people over there. There's two more questions, and they're a pair. Um, we view this podcast as a dialogue between a technology provider, Lightspeed, and insurance professionals. I emphasize insurance professionals because it'd probably be very easy to focus this next one just on Bogus. But it's a kind of a two-way street here where I think that it's important for all players in the space to just be very honest and direct with each other, because I think that's how we move forward. Bogus was just saying, I gave Lightspeed feedback, they heard me out, they implemented a change, and it improved the product. Jay, we're going to give you the opportunity to improve the audience. From your perspective, what is the hardest part of working with insurance agencies?
Hardest part is going to be that no two agencies are going to run the same. No
Mm-hmm.
two agencies will, need the same features.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of goes into, the next thing about the the features that we are constantly pushing and updating. There's constantly more. AI just popped out. Probably what, a year ago, it really took off with ChatGPT, and that our feature requests, as you can imagine,
Sure.
exploded around the AI world. So things like that, always keeping up to date. We just launched our AI tool, but there's still an endless amount of things that can be added on to the AI features. But yeah, the biggest thing is no two agencies run the same, and that's
Mm-hmm.
why we're not trying to be a phone system for everyone. That's why we're staying focused in the insurance space, because
Mm.
you can spend an endless amount of time there to really make a system work for all of the agents.
Yeah. I think it's a very fair answer.
Yeah.
Maybe I should have just said what is the hardest part of working with Bogus. But Bogus, how do we'll dive more into this in part two, but you operate a relatively large agency, especially in terms of staff. Um, do you find it difficult adapting the technology you choose towards your workflows? Because I know you're very mindful about how your business runs, which makes you very mindful in what technology you bring in. So, do you agree that you see it as a difficulty within the industry?
I agree, and I think that really kind of stems more so from the decision maker,
Mm,
because shiny toy object syndrome is kind of
mm-hmm.
a big thing with our space. I've written a couple blogs about that and how I kind of approach the process. I over evaluate and then I
Mm,
see what supports my current processes to make them better rather
mm-hmm.
than having to create a new process completely.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing more frustrating for my team than to learn something completely new. They'd much rather have something that slides in and just makes the process better.
Sure.
Um, so for me, it's really not the only headache that I ever have is just installing the system on 29 computers.
Sure.
That's really my biggest headache.
So now I mentioned these questions are a pair. And we start with the hardest part as kind of the backswing, and then our follow through here. We would like to know, Jacob, from your perspective and your experience working with agencies, what is the best part of working with an insurance agency?
Yeah. Well, so yeah, from my standpoint, because I work, a lot of agencies, I work directly with the agency owner. And they have the most, I guess you could say, skin in the game, right?
Mm,
On changing a system which, can take some time out of running their agency. So the biggest thing is just to see the impact, and also depending on, what system they're coming from or what system they're currently using, switching over to something like Lightspeed Voice. Those conversations that we can have can be fantastic. I mean, they're amazing when they're excited to see what they've been missing out on, and all of these things that can, just speed up things, make things more effective inside their agency, have calls recorded for that amount of time automatically logged into HawkSoft with Nova, which is our AI piece.
mm,
We're automatically logging a call summary. So every single call that happens in your agency that day, you can get a 3 to 4 sentence summary automatically logged in that customer profile. So nobody even needs to take notes. So as an
mhm.
agency owner, you can go through all of your customer profiles, or you can go through all the calls that happen in your agency that day in a matter of, I don't know, 10 minutes. You can read a quick summary of every single call that happened in your agency. Obviously, that'd be a little bit tougher with Bogus having, almost 30 users, but a smaller agency, 5 to 6 users, it's just going to take you a few minutes every day to go through your calls. And something like that, where especially when people are moving, to more of a remote kind of work environment, I mean, it's as if everybody's in the office. You know
Mhm.
what's going on. You don't need to spend 20 minutes listening to each call. If that's going to be a lot of time. Or the transcription. A transcription still is going to take you a few minutes to read through a 20-minute call. So call summaries and just things automatically logging into HawkSoft, so everything can be in one place, is really exciting to talk with agency owners, because they're excited, just as excited as I am about it too.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. It's always fun when you're able to connect with an engaged agency owner that's like passionate about
Yeah,
the benefits something is going to bring to their, or curious enough to be like, I'm going to question my assumptions about how this stuff will work. Let's talk
yeah.
about it. Those were our 5 questions, but we also like to tease the audience to make sure they tune into next week for part 2. So, as a way to wrap this up and to bridge into our next episode, I'd like to talk about Lightspeed Voice as an API partner with HawkSoft. It was a personal achievement of mine to be able to work with Lightspeed last year and release them as our very first two-way API integrated phone system and telecommunication platform. Um, I'd love to know, or I'd love to have you guys explain to the audience. um, I don't want to suggest that as the director of partner integrations, I don't know how it works, but assume I don't. How does Lightspeed Voice work with the HawkSoft management system?
Yeah. Do you want me to kick it off?
Please.
All right. Yeah. So when you're integrated with Lightspeed, when a call comes into your agency, you can pick up the phone with your, the mobile app on your iPhone, on your computer, or desk phone if you have physical desk phone. So as soon as you pick up that call that's ringing your extension, it's going to automatically pull up that customer's profile inside of HawkSoft on your computer. Now, when that call is complete, it is now going to log it. So that's going to show which employee was on the call, at what time, the duration of the call, with that call recording link. So that's just automatically saved on that customer profile, inbound, outbound call, every call in your agency. If you're texting through HawkSoft, obviously you can just text right through the HawkSoft system, but you can also text through Lightspeed Voice through your main number, and we're also logging the contents of the text in that customer's profile as well. And then touched on Nova already, so Nova AI, that's probably the coolest, most out there futuristic integration that we have, and that's automatically logging call summary and sentiment in that customer's profile inside of HawkSoft. So after that call is complete, it's going to log a 4 sentence summary, as well as the sentiment, which is either going to be a positive, neutral, or negative sentiment on how that call went with that agent and customer.
That's awesome. I have been thoroughly impressed by the continued iteration on the integration that the Lightspeed team has been implementing. Because it started off with the call logging, and
Yeah.
Lightspeed, even before the API, was able to do dial out from HawkSoft and screen
Yep.
pop coming in. But when you guys introduced Nova, um, which I'm really happy that the tech world is going back to names as acronyms. And so I'll let the audience research what Nova stands for, but the you guys folded it right in right away, which I
Yeah.
think is huge. Bogus, we will definitely dive into this a lot more in part 2, but what is your quick perspective on how the integration is working between Lightspeed and HawkSoft?
I think Jacob did an amazing job explaining it. I don't think I could do it any better. I think that Lightspeed recognizes the fact that as an agency, user, owner, team member, whatever role you might play, is that the agency management system is the hub of everything. So the more data that they can push in and then you could see within HawkSoft is absolutely fantastic. And they've gone above and beyond making sure that any implemented feature they have gets over to HawkSoft, so you're not looking in two places. So Jacob knocked it, out of the park, explaining exactly what they do and how they do it.
Excellent. Well, then I hope the audience will join us for part 2, where Bogus will dive into the details of how his agency utilizes Lightspeed Voice. Thank you so much, Jacob, for sitting in the hot seat today with us and giving us the perspective from Lightspeed Voice, and Bogus for chiming in as a mutual customer of HawkSoft and Lightspeed. Thank you for watching today's episode. Click the video description below to learn more about our guests and to view the latest podcast episode as well as other content from HawkSoft. We appreciate you watching and hope you join us next time on the Insurance Perspectives podcast. Thank you.